Most people think Tesla turned Elon Musk from a normal tech guy into the richest man on Earth. Nice story, but also wrong. By the time most people even heard of Tesla, Elon had already cashed out of two companies and was sitting on around $180 million from Zip2 and PayPal. In this video, we will walk you through step-by-step how he actually made his money. From a quiet kid in South Africa, to early internet wins, to almost going broke while trying to build rockets and electric cars. And at the end, we will pull out 3 simple money lessons that you can copy in your own life. Stick around, because the full story has way more twists than most people realize. Elon Musk was born in Pretoria, South Africa, in 1971. He was the quiet kid who loved books, computers, and stories about space. Not the star of the school. More the type of kid who sits alone at lunch, thinking about other planets. Home life was hard, school was hard, and he was often bullied. But he had one clear way to escape. He learned to build things with code. It wasn't glamorous, but for him it was a superpower. At 12, he made a simple space game called Blaster on his computer and sold the code to a magazine for around $500. The money was small, but the idea was big. You can sit in a room, write lines of code, and someone will pay for it. That pattern will come back later, just with much larger numbers. It was the earliest sign that he understood something most people never figure out. You can create your own opportunities. At 17, Elon left South Africa to avoid serving in the military and chase bigger opportunities in North America. He first moved to Canada, then later to the United States for university, just as the early internet was starting to wake up. Remember, this was a time when most people didn't even have email. The internet felt like a strange new experiment that only a few people even believed in. In 1995, he and his brother Kimball started a company called Zip2. The idea was simple, but incredibly early: a digital map directory for newspapers that helped people find nearby businesses. What sounds normal today was almost futuristic back then. Newspapers didn't even fully understand what the internet was supposed to become. Life at Zip2 did not look rich at all. The office was small. Elon slept on the floor or on a narrow couch, showered at a gym, and spent most of his time in front of a computer trying to keep the site alive. It was the classic startup grind: long nights, broken computers, and not much money coming in. But the thing Elon was building had real potential, even if almost nobody could see it yet. 4 years later, that hope paid off. In 1999, a computer-making company, Compaq, bought Zip2 for about $305 million in cash and stock. Elon walked away with around $22 million. That was his first big win, and most people would have stopped right there. They would have retired in their 20s and lived comfortably. But Elon didn't. Within months, he rolled a huge portion of that cash straight into his next company, X.com, an online bank. This was the year 2000. People still stood in long bank lines. Many didn't trust online money at all. The idea of sending cash through the internet felt dangerous. X.com changed that. It let people hold money, send it by email, and handle basic banking online. Soon, it merged with another startup that had a strong payment tool, and the combined company became PayPal. Inside the new firm, there were power struggles, arguments, and disagreements about direction. Elon was eventually pushed out as CEO, but he kept a large block of shares, and that would make all the difference. He may have lost the title, but he still held the leverage. In 2002, eBay bought PayPal for about $1.5 billion in stock. Because Elon was the largest individual shareholder, his cut was huge, around $180 million after taxes. He could have retired after that, bought houses, cars, and enjoyed a calm, rich life. But again, he went the opposite direction. He took almost all of that PayPal money and went all in on 3 new bets. Around $100 million into SpaceX to build cheaper rockets, about $70 million into Tesla to build electric cars, and around $10 million into SolarCity for solar power. On paper, that sounds close to crazy. Imagine winning a huge lottery and then pouring almost the entire amount into 3 extremely difficult industries: rockets, cars, and energy. No safe funds, no fallback plan. That was his move. He wasn't investing. He was going to war in industries where almost everyone else had failed. The next years were rough. SpaceX tried to launch rockets and had multiple failures in a row. Each launch cost tens of millions. Each failure pushed the company closer to shutdown. Tesla was trying to build its first sports car while burning cash in the middle of the 2008 financial crisis. Investors were nervous. Customers were unsure. At one point, both companies were days or even hours from running out of money. Elon has said that it was the closest he had ever come to breaking mentally. So you had a strange picture. On paper, the PayPal founder should be rich. In real life, he was taking loans from friends, selling personal belongings, and living with stress every single day trying to keep both companies alive. If either one failed, most of his wealth would disappear instantly. He was rich, but he couldn't afford to relax for even a moment. Then things finally started to turn. In 2008, SpaceX had its first successful launch and later won a major NASA contract that basically saved the company. Tesla raised new money, cut costs, fixed production issues, and slowly started delivering cars that people actually wanted to buy and drive. Both companies were still risky, but they were no longer dying. Through everything, Elon held huge ownership in both companies. He owned a big chunk of SpaceX. And at Tesla, he was the largest shareholder and the main decision maker. So when the value of these companies exploded, the value of his shares exploded with them. He didn't need a high salary. He owned the machine that printed the value. That's what happened from around 2012 onward. Tesla stock went from being unknown to one of the most watched stocks in the world. SpaceX, still private, raised money at higher and higher valuations. Today, most lists put his net worth in the hundreds of billions. At several points, he's been listed as the richest person on Earth, but almost all of that is tied to his shares, not to piles of cash. It's wealth that exists because he held on to the hardest bets for the longest time. This is why his rank on the rich list moves so fast. When Tesla stock drops, his net worth can fall by tens or even hundreds of billions on paper. When it rises, it swings back up. The numbers move, but the structure stays the same. He is rich in assets, not in bank account cash. So what can a normal person take from this story? First lesson: own a piece, not just a paycheck. Elon got rich by owning shares, not salary. For you, that means building something of your own or investing slowly instead of keeping everything in cash. Ownership is how wealth scales. Second lesson: ride big waves, not tiny ripples. He picked massive long-term trends: online payments, electric cars, reusable rockets. You don't need to copy the industries, but you should look for big, clear trends instead of chasing short-term hype. Third lesson: think in decades, not days. From Zip2 to PayPal to Tesla and SpaceX, this story covers more than 25 years. There were many points where he looked wrong or finished. He stayed with his bets. For you, that means letting skills, savings, and investments compound over time. Slow growth is still growth. At the end, all we can say is that Tesla didn't suddenly make Elon Musk rich. He became rich because he owned big parts of the companies he built and stayed with his ideas even when they looked like they would fail. Like he once said, when something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments who you want next.